You're being recorded. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Brightsea Town Council's meeting of the 19th of June at 7 p.m. First of all, please say it's very hot this evening, so we'll try and get this through as quickly as possible so we can get back out into the fresh air. I will sit here. So, thank you. If I can ask for apologies for absence, please.
Apologies from Councillor Howard.
You all have copies of the minutes of the last meeting of the 15th of May. Can I ask if there was any corrections to the accuracy of those? No? Thank you. Can I have a proposal for them? Yes, Jane. Second, please. Terry, thank you very much. You have? Oh, sorry. As they all put their hands up, all in agreement.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to the Mayor's announcements, you have a list of the appointments I had since the last meeting. I'd just like to make two comments. One on the Sainsbury's store, which I was particularly heartened to hear that the Co-op used to employ 40 people on site, and the new Cambridge is now employing 70. So it's very good news for local shops. And the other one that I wanted to comment on was the last one, the meeting with Nathan Pearson this morning, just to make the point that we gave him a hard time about the unsocial behaviour of cars and motorbikes going around up and down the street. So he said he was going to go away and get that one. Last time we said that to him, he was very effective in stopping what was happening then. So let's hope he does the same here. Thank you. Moving, unless there's any questions about that, I'll move on. Item number 4 is the declaration of members' interests of any pecuniary or other registrable interests. Do I have any? No, thank you very much. Okay. So moving on, therefore, to item 5, a report from County Councillor Alan David. Alan, do you want to come and sit up here? Or?
Yes, please, thank you. Is here okay?
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. I think we're going to say take your jackets off, but nobody had them on.
It's a long time since that's over.
Right, I've got, thanks to the chairman, I've got a second spot to talk about local highways plan because I believe they're an item that probably needs just a mention of their own. So quickly, I'll run through my notes. I go straight to number 4, which is June the 11th, which talks about the last quarter, bits and pieces done in Brighton City, Churchill Close, Sampson Close, Grove Street, Apple Park Road, Dover Road. There's still plenty to do, but that's a good amount of work done in town. The speed and volume survey from Ladysmith Avenue has been completed. I haven't got an indication of when we'll get the answer, but typically that would be 2 to 3 weeks. So to be blunt, as you paid for it, you'll get it at the same time as I will. So hopefully we'll know the number. Moving on to June the 10th, I had a meeting with the Brightsea, I call it the panel committee. There is an issue about vegetation and overgrown bushes in place, and the council have adopted or going to amend some letters that were supplied originally by Essex County Council. You can imagine the process. You start with the concept that the Essex County Council are responsible for anything on the road, on the highways. So that's their role. You can go in at the deep end and you can just find a bush that's overhanging and you can send a solicitor's letter, quote type thing, from Essex County Council saying we're going to come and do it, we're going to lot of stuff to go on and we're going to charge. To be blunt, that's not, I don't think, a good starting point. So the starting point that Essex County Council have come up with and on endorse is, if it's possible, have a chat to the garden or the business or whoever it is. Try and get them on your side and to agree. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Then if it doesn't work, then the town council take the initiative with legal type of procession. So they send a letter saying, dear Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we've had a complaint from residents, so and so, your garden's been identified, so can you please do something about it? And then you start to put in little conditions, so we'd like a response within 4 weeks, and just, you know, the next level up, the escalation, is to take the stuff to Essex. So if there's ever a case or an argument or whatever it is, there's a nice system which everybody buys into, and I believe my colleague over here is amending the words that St Osyth have used.
I am, yes. You know, we've got this imposed with.
St Osyth's copied the ones from Essex
Oh,
County
we
Council.
don't.
And you can be as friendly or as nice as you like, or as hard as you like. It's entirely up to you what route you take. I think on page 2. I'll go into number 15, May 22nd. So, as you know, I'm chairman of the scrutiny committee, and we go through various things at various times. On May 22nd, we had an update on the scrutiny on the bus shelter strategy. Let me just paint a little picture. Essex County Council is responsible for some of the bus shelters, not all of them, only some of the bus shelters. And I think the cost was around, by the time you're cleaning them, repairing them, doing any damage, the cost to Essex County Council ratepayers was about £100,000 a year. Now that didn't improve anything. It didn't make. There was no electrification. There was no electronic bus timetables. That was just coping with the. So a year ago, a bit more than a year ago, they decided to look at leasing out the bus shelters to whoever. So they went to the market. Someone's come back and has leased the bus shelters on a proper agreement. So just the point. So in year 1 of the system, the income is expected to be 674,000, including a minimum income guarantee from the shelter company and a 39,000 estimated share of profit. So Essex County Council have gone from a situation where they had a system that wasn't wonderful, wasn't supplying terrific bus shelters, but it's getting rid of that obligation and making money. And the bottom line is that it will end up with bus shelters, which are and the newest one we've seen. You may remember Thorrington Cross, and a bit of a fiasco about getting it, but it is a nice new bus shelter. So that's a positive move. I spoke with Councillor Jean Howe and a couple of others, and I also took up with the bus portfolio holder that was there. The buses going east on the 87, where there was no bus going that way. So what they've agreed is that they will suspend the bus shelters. So they put a big black bag over the bus shelters. I asked them not to take them away because there's a hope that perhaps at some stage it may come back. So for the sake of putting a bin liner, effectively, a bit more than that over, it means that cage, that it has to remain empty, no longer has to remain empty. So there's one of them in the High Street, so that releases about 3 cars. There's another one in Chapel Road, thank you. And I had an incident there, really embarrassing. There was a lady standing at the bus stop, waiting for a bus, and she wasn't from Brighton, but she was going to visit somebody, and she got off the bus to visit this person coming in on this side of the road, and naturally assumed that she would get the bus out waiting on that side of the road. So when I actually approached her, I've got to tell you, I think it's the most stupid thing I've ever done, and said, look, I think you may not have been told so. And then offered her a lift in my truck. And afterwards, I thought you used to. So that's not meant to be humorous, but that's a serious issue.
It does look like a bus.
It's got more rust than dust. So to be blunt, I think that there's plenty going on, there's plenty there. I've got this other thing to talk about, but really over to you for any questions that you may have.
Yeah, I was going to ask, well, just an update really, on your item 5 regarding the issues of vegetation. I just remember a couple of months ago, you were going on to the people in Wellington Street because of overhanging bushes. I just wondered, did you ever manage to resolve that?
Interestingly, I spoke to the lady today, as it happens. We spoke about, and like I said, it might come up at the meeting. She did trim back the hedges, she says. She trimmed back the hedges. Like all things, vegetation, any gardener would know vegetation that you trim back this week, in 3 months' time, it's going back again. She's a very animal protective type person, and she trimmed back what she thought was enough to avoid disturbing any of the birds' nests in there, which I have sympathy with. And some people have. I had a word today, and literally as we were talking on the phone, I asked her to go outside now, and there are some bigger brambles that have come through, and the brambles have grown bigger than the hedge. So she cut that back today, and she said that when the nesting season finishes in September, she'll cut it back even further.
You've missed out our night out.
You what?
You've missed off our night out.
Oh, what?
Not now.
Listen,
Alan and I went.
excuse me, your husband's listening.
Did he pick you up in his truck?
No, we picked me up in the car. I was a bit worried it was going to be the really low car. I'm not certain I was going to get in and out, but no. Alan and I attended Gladstone. If anybody wants to read through this, but it was
Comes up in item 7.
does it? Oh, sorry.
It's a proper, it was a proper it was a 10-year celebration of and bear in mind they started in Brighton, the people there are still living in Brighton. I think it's a fabulous organisation. I think they do a lot.
I was told, Alan, they're moving their headquarters into Brighton.
Yeah, they're here.
They are.
They are here.
Was
And
it-
on my report, it's got a picture of the statue. that's
Yeah.
going in as
They're
well.
putting a statue up on it.
Yeah.
I've got to tell you, I think that's a cracking move from the council. I think that's excellent. And the way they're going at the moment, they're looking at doing, I'm not going to use the word franchise because it's the wrong connotation, but they're looking at what they do and then repeating it in other places because they have this great mentor student relationship. And Jane and I, it was overwhelming. There were some lads there that looked as if they'd just come out of somewhere, and they spoke eloquently. And it's a real career.
What is it, sorry?
Lads Meet Dads, it's an organisation.
It's exactly what it says.
Yeah.
They work with young boys who don't have dads in their growing up, father figures in their life, and they act, they take them out. If anybody wants to read that, it really
It's a fabulous. I've got a spare one of those, so if you would you give me that one?
yeah.
It is, if you're looking for something to support financially,
I've actually already spoken to them.
in that case,
I was invited to the same thing as you, but unfortunately I wasn't able to make it.
that's good because we couldn't have got you in the car.
I'd have bought my own truck.
Thank you for loaning me your wife for the night.
Okay, thank you. Shall we move on to your second item and then we'll ask?
Yeah, is it, no questions from anybody else? I'll go on to, and I'm going to specifically talk about the local highways family. Now, for the people who are newish to the council, some of this may come as an interesting surprise. For the vast majority who've been here for some time, they know all about it. In fact, Councillor Steady sat on the So there is this thing called the local highways panel. There are 9 of them in Essex. They are primarily put into position, I think 10 years ago. It's around that time, 10 years ago. And as the name implies, they were meant to be a local committee that looks at road safety issues on a local basis rather than on, so the tendering local highways panel is made up of the 8 Essex County councillors, of which I'm one. So we cover the same tendering council that Nick Barry and Clune and Jane cover. And we have an invited person on a regular basis who's from Tito. It's been going and it's been a success in some areas and an absolute disaster in other areas. It just hasn't worked. So each local highways plan has given its own budget, and as I said, originally it was meant to take small items out of the system. It's expanded over the years. There's always been a list of guidelines. It always goes back to safety. Number one is safety. Not maintenance, not for improvement, just to safety. And to get a project on, a county councillor has to come forward with a project, often it's led by the parish council or the town council. And then it goes on the system, and then there's a system of status. But it's gone wrong because the worst one is Chelmsford. With all the stuff that councils have brought forward, Chelmsford has 7 years' work before they take on any more. That's a disaster. You can't make that. I have to admit, and I've said this before, that the system is never designed to do some things. I personally have pushed the system for as much as I can, whilst trying to keep it in the spirit of the thing. And my division has done very well out of the system. Graham was there when a few years ago. We went through the project and said, look, there are things that have been here for 3 or 4 years. They got to go. You either get on and do them now, or you could get rid of them. So we unclogged the system, and in that time, we have got some big stuff through. Around here, the biggest thing we got through was the zebra crossing outside of Colne, and that only worked once we involved the school. We got some money from education. The B1027 is another issue. So, but it's safety driven. Because of devolution, all of a sudden everything's changed. So there's some extra money has come from the government. Essex has got some extra money from the government, and we are going to clear out one way or another. We're either going to do them or we're going to scrap them because we've literally got 2 years. We don't want to have a situation where in 2 years' time, when there's a change of governance, there are things undone, not started. So the decision's been made to freeze where we are at the moment in the local highways plan. Our meeting for tendering is the 26th or 27th, I think, where for the first time for 3 months, we will sit down and discuss the budget, what's on the list, what's not on the list. If you've got things on the list, that's good. Now we've had a couple of problems. Most of you, a lot of you might remember the B1027 project. 11 deaths in 15 years. Terrible, horrible. Since the project was looked at, 3 people have already died on the same thing. And part of the problem we found out is that all the changes, the speed changes and everything else on the B1027 should have been done and finished by November 24. They weren't. They were, bar one. And the one that wasn't finished was the one at Flag Hill near the caravan site. And it sounds strange, but that was because there was a death there. There was a coroner's report, and the coroner's report said we were delighted to see that actually where the young man died, we'd already agreed to change the 60-mile-an-hour limit down to 40. The coroner decided that was good, but he wanted the 40-mile-an-hour limit to be extended another 1,000 metres. So all of a sudden, the B1027 project, which is funded, agreed, Road Traffic Act, things, everything else, all of a sudden we've got an unfunded item of about £70,000 to £80,000, which has got to come out of the local highways power, because the coroner's view trumps everybody. So what that means is for my 5 parishes, if you've got something in the pipeline, almost certainly that will get through. If you haven't got something ready to go, when the shackles come off, try not to get caught out starting from scratch. But there is going to be a freeze just to clear the backlog. Now that's not what I want, but that's the way it
Hello,
is.
can I ask you, do you know if, I don't know about this, so is there anything in the backlog from Brighton?
Yeah, well, at this particular moment in time, you've got I'm going to call it the hedgehog signs. The hedgehog signs have been agreed in principle, looked at, the engineers have started the work already on it. So it's got to get to a local highways manual, which is the next one coming up, to be agreed. And then, of course, we need to find out how's it going to be funded. The hedgehog people are doing their own fundraising. So that's one.
Is there any other,
I think that's it, actually in the programme.
so there's nothing else, so,
No, the big thing outstanding is the Belfield Avenue, but that's not local highways panel, that's maintenance.
okay. Okay, thank you. Any questions on that?
So is Legacy Avenue not in, apart from the small wildlife signs, it's not in there?
No, because there's all we've done is, just provided the information about speed. And hopefully it will provide us with what we, so, and yeah, just to give you a feeling for where the problem is, as a good example, some of you will know Lufkin's Farm, Great Bentley, it's an accident, black spot, and just take this in the way it comes across. That black spot used to have 1 or 2 accidents a year. The last 12 months, up to something like April 25, they've had 8. Now, what that means is there comes a stage in Essex, there's a thing called Safer Essex Partnership, which is the one that anytime there's a death or a really serious injury, or something like 8 accidents in one spot, that's automatically triggers in a review. So, as a good example, that isn't, that was started on the system. So that will be coming under Thorrington and Great Bentley, so that's in my patch. So that will be fighting for any money, along with anything else anybody else brings in. The bottom line is, those 8 accidents, 2 including helicopter carriages, again, they will go straight to the top of the list.
Thank you very much. There's no more, no more questions. So if I may suspend the meeting, as it were, for a moment, and allow the public to ask Alan any questions, if you know, if you do have questions, if you would,
So turn them back on.
Alan, Malcolm.
Hello, B10 27 between Smarton Farm and St Owen's bypass. When are the potholes going to be repaired?
I'd love to tell you that. I was on the phone to them today. I don't know. But what's taken precedent is just what is St Osyth, Point Clear, Mill Street. Every night last week for 7 days they were doing other works.
I asked you about B10 27
I
between
asked,
Martin's Farm
yeah, and
and
that's
bypass.
that's where the people who would have been doing the B1027 was working last week.
There's only one crew.
No, it's only one crew that does that type of stuff. It's not it's a patching job.
I mean, you mentioned about deaths and road safety.
Yeah.
That's a death rate. It's shocking.
I agree with you entirely.
So how come it's not been
Because
widely prioritised?
400 yards up the road is an actual road. 600 yards up the road, 3 people have died in the last 5 years. So I agree entirely with what you say, but someone somewhere, not me, puts different things in priority.
But you've got this, member-led highway repairs. Surely that would be,
Yes, you're right.
it's been months, this is pre-winter.
I understand that, but it hasn't got to the top of the list. That's the problem.
Just shocking.
Okay.
Absolutely shocking.
Can I, Alan, Councillor Chapman,
Sorry. I believe following on from an ENT meeting, there was talk, and I thought it had gone a bit further than it probably has, talk about some new no entry signs
Yes.
along the Vaughan Memorial.
Yes,
That's
that's on the list. Sorry, I missed that.
That is still
That's-
on the list.
It's going on the list. It's already done
Right,
for 26.
okay.
And that has a good chance of going through because the people aren't.
Well, there was Monday, and I was quite pleased because we had a police officer actually, I mentioned that earlier, who, an off-duty one, who actually witnessed it. Somebody came down one-way system.
Really?
Way, my side, and the car coming up to turn right round the one-way system actually had to mount the curb and then take out the railings of the wall memorial. And they, you know, they got stopped and they questioned you, really quite like shouting, he said there was off-duty police officer who went over. And he said, where are the signs to tell you that that is a one-way?
Yeah.
And we were looking at it, they were right, but it was
Yeah.
supposed to be really bad.
So that
Did
one's,
anyone
that one's,
get any pictures?
Probably on my camera,
That would be lovely if you could get that to me before next week.
yeah, I'll have a look, see if it picked it up, mine might
So-
not go far enough, but tell you that.
It's been discussed amongst officers, so people know about it. To be blunt, it's a fairly modest issue.
Right.
Yeah, it's a fairly modest issue.
Councillor Henry.
I was going to say, so if the public, especially like the pub, because the pub sees it all the time, people going on the wrong way, if they got photos and sent that in, would that make this a bit quicker, go a bit quicker? If we start getting evidence of it?
I'm going to say no, because in theory, it's either right or it's wrong, and it's wrong. But without pictures, you'll get in stories and he
So
said
what I
she.
mean is, so it's
So if
evidence.
you've got pictures, make sure that Tracy and Julie, get them to them, absolutely. And that would apply to anything that you have for pictures, tells us 100 stories.
Right, okay. Okay, I think, thank you, Alan, as usual. If you want to,
I'm off to sunny St. Nosey.
we'll send you, yeah,
Well, funny, I'm not in Point Clear Road and not in 1.9 miles.
send them our regards.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, if we could then move on now to item 6, which is the update from our district councillors. I'll take it in order of how the report is.
Nothing's right.
Any questions?
Can I just, Mick, I know you've been doing a whole lot of work on this sports activity, which is really good. And I thought it was great to see 100 representatives highlighting the sport activity strategy, which is very positive, which is great. Is there any sign of any extra need, any extra chance of getting some extra sports provision for Brightlingston? Because, with due respect, we're not really deficient in sport. As you know, I know
I mean-
I know, Nick, I'm not saying you have.
No, well, there is, if there is a clearly identified need, I mean, we are looking, to build, resources and so on, but I will just give you an example of, a problem that arose this week where the Corn School or the Sigma Trust have informed all users that they are closing the facilities for the entirety of the school holidays. Now, this was 2 weeks after I had a meeting with the head of the chief executive of the Sigma Trust and the director, who were saying, yes, we want to engage with communities, we want to up our resources, etc., etc. And I know this is going to affect over 350 users out there. So I have made some representations, and you know, there will, something will have to happen about this one way or the other, because it's just not acceptable. But you say, what have you got in mind, Rick? I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, we want some sports facilities, but the fact is that the facilities at the school are usable and bookable under certain conditions. And I have said this for the last 2 or 3 years. I play football every Sunday, and I can use the facility, but it comes with a very different system. So if, you know, we're in the process of coming out to regions, 4 regions of tendering, asking people really what their particular needs are, and then working with providers to try and meet those needs. So there will be an opportunity coming up in the very near future for representatives from clubs, organisations and the community to come and meet with the sports officers from tendering and tell them what they feel would be, you know, useful in their area, and we will try and meet those needs. But it's not. I have to say, it's a little bit nebulous to say when are we going to get some facilities, because are you talking about tennis courts, paddle tennis, pickleball? Are you talking about petanque courts? What are you talking about? Because I know what the needs are in terms of football, rugby, playing areas. And I know there are no tennis courts in this town. I know there are no squash courts are not being used. I know exactly what is here and what isn't. But it is about really matching up, because there's no point in providing something if nobody's going to use it. So that's the sort of the phase we're in after the conference. The conference launched a system where consultation will take place with communities, and they will be able to meet 3 or 4 times a year to say what they want and try and make things happen. So, yeah, I mean, I take your point, but you have to be slightly more specific.
Nick, I know that you work very hard on this. Every council, everybody in the town knows we need greater sports facilities, and we are looking at the lower part. We are looking at different areas. It's just that my eyes went on to 100 representatives all getting together to talk about sports and regeneration in these areas. I thought, was there any chance of anything for Brighton looking at it? With result, the obvious thing is the school, and the school is so difficult to do any deals with. I mean, I don't know how many times we've written to the school asking for. I mean, you might get a meeting, but we barely.
Well, I'll say that example is just reflective of the the ambivalence and the approach that they have. It's very difficult because they are a trust, and they're not attached to the county council. And you have to deal with the boards, and we're dealing with six trusts in tendering, all with different policies and different managers.
Sorry, so can I just check this? So there's no obligation on that school to actually engage, even on the planning even at planning level? Sorry.
Sorry, you probably answered it to some extent, Nick. At the last FCA meeting, it was mentioned about there's 3 teams already waiting to play football and Bayards, and another team have applied and have been basically told you're 4th in line. So is that something that's been considered to be pushed back up to the school, or will they just not entertain it?
Well, again, the school is sort of hold all the cards in terms of having the resources and the playing fields. And the playing fields at Strangers Corner used to be very well maintained when they were a football college, but they've fallen a little below par. We have offered to try and help them out in terms of maintenance. We've offered to cut them, repair and so on. And again, this is it's part of the torturous negotiations with the Signal Trust, because they, whilst paying lip service to be minded to support community use, will fall back on a position which says we're an education facility, not a sports facility, and our priority is children's education. So it's, if you push them too far, they've got the capacity, as they have just announced, to close the entirety for 6 weeks. Now, I know there's 150 kids from the region here that've got reservations to use their pictures during that 6-week period. And another 30, 40 from Wigmore, and another 40 more from football, and so on. There's 250 people going to be affected by that. And I sent an email to the management yesterday and said, can we talk, there must be some way of managing this, because it's about staffing levels. And getting a key and opening the place up, and if we have to put in some temporary support to do that, then we will, but, it's not a level playing field to use a bit, and it's really, really difficult, to work with them.
I was just thinking, have you actually ever spoken to the junior school? Because they've got a really good field, and I'm wondering if, if the Cone aren't willing to provide, you have a car park, you have a
Yeah,
field.
no, I haven't actually.
And also they have football teams themselves,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking while it's not being used, why aren't you thinking elsewhere?
Well, the kids who train are, some of them under 11s who would be at that school. They go on
My
the
daughter
last
played
ones.
there,
Yeah, no, that's a good
and I'm
idea.
just thinking, why aren't we asking other people? Why are we constantly asking
Well,
the same
we
people?
asked
when
them,
could-
and we tried to develop our own facility in North Park Rec.
Yeah.
They've done, we've
I
got
was just
some
thinking,
jobs
you've
out
got
there,
the car park and everything there, why can't
Yeah,
you use
okay.
that?
Okay, okay. Right.
Yeah, just to say that with them closing that facility, it has got a knock on for us because region things about taking trainer and facility down there as well as training owners, which obviously is going to cause that under pressure as well. So I know that Terry is looking for guidance and also there's it's a new Sunday team one like them as well. So we need to some sort of guidance to say, Jerry, yeah, you're gonna, what is our policy? That's what we need to do.
Can I just check if the school is not allowing, does that include the pitches that's going to spawn as
Yeah,
well?
all,
Wow.
yeah, all our sports centre.
No parking signs won't be needed.
Have they done the same for the other schools in the trust as well?
No, it's just right, so as far as I'm aware, it's about staffing levels, for somebody to open a lot of gates, which is fairly nonsensical. Anyway, leave it, I mean, I am expecting a response and I will be making representations.
Okay. Yeah, can I then move on to councillor Chapman's report?
I think I must have fallen asleep right my report, the 20th I missed out full council. One that I was going to add to all three was last night we had one was training and it was extra training or updated training on the code of conduct.
I'll ask you a question outside the meeting, just to know about your training course on that other. Outside the meeting. Moving on then to councillor Graham Steady's report.
Yeah, obviously, waste management contract, is due to be, tender. I actually, attended the Police and Fire Commission public meeting, where I asked two questions, which I was there. I must admit, Nathan was a little bit surprised when they said all proposals will be investigated. Yeah, and I said, best of luck with that then.
We brought that out this morning for Nathan.
And then obviously, another interesting was the retained firemen, so advertised retained firemen they did. But apparently got a new system for on-call firemen, which means that, because obviously society has changed, where all the retained firemen used to be local people work at home too, and now that has changed. But now apparently firemen can actually log on or get a position in any fire brigade, anywhere, if it's better for them where they work. So that was a little bit interesting really. Portfolio working group is another interesting thing. I keep trying to say this to people, when people are back in the 20 million like banners and in actual fact it's actually specific. It's area specific and project specific. And that's why it's, unfortunately, in some respects, not in a class that they're running down area. and are doing well. But that is quite interesting, some of the schemes they've run before. And you know, so I've asked questions about getting a spin-off from those which I'm waiting for a reply. Hey, interesting one, really issue. I mean, we had a presentation on dental, the NHS Dental Commission. And that was very, very interesting. I was able to get Pat Powell, who's got 2 surgeries in the town. He's got the most treatment in the and they started, the NHS has started a free toothbrush initiative where they get children to toothbrushes, toothpaste, and they go through the normal to clean the teeth to get them into the right habits. But Pat is also, he does lecture at university, so he gets to the students. So from the other meetings, maybe we can look at a link up and we can say, will we in mileage it, and I'll report back when we're here.
Can I just before you finish, did you want to say anything about Western Pond toilet?
Of the Western Pond toilets.
Is it all finished?
Yeah, the doors were vandalised. Yeah. And in fairness, you know, we were given a serious time to tell it. And, you know, I'll tell the story, I went down, the lads were doing it, and that was on Wednesday, Thursday. And I said, oh, I'm going to be home for St. Oliver the weekend because of the sun, and he said, well, if you hang on for 10 minutes, we'll be ready. So, that was pretty quick. So, yeah, so, that was done. I think,
My question is about dog grooming, I'm afraid.
dog grooming?
Yeah.
That's my question as well.
Yeah.
Dog groomings. Are there any plans, I know that it's out for tender at the moment, but are there any plans to up the amount of collections around dog groomings?
Yeah, I'm actually got a question from resident, and we'll be covering, I think, the way forward for that, so.
Just obviously in the hot weather as well.
Yeah.
Double whammy.
But they're obviously, the last 2 weeks, there has been a reason.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I'll come to.
It is a pretty simple reason, isn't it? He was on holiday and they didn't provide any cover.
Well, no, they did. They did
Tell them what
provide.
the reasons were.
Do you want me to read my, I can read my.
No, if we don't mind, we'll come back to that because it's a public question.
Right,
That is
okay,
a
yeah,
pub-
that's
so-
fine, absolutely fine.
Graham's prepared a full answer for it then. So, if there are no other questions, I'll move on. So if we can therefore move on to item 7, which is the team's report. And first of all, team's report from the FCA.
I certainly can, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chair.
Hi, everybody.
Just on the picture thing, apart from sending in pictures, report it if there's an incident or something. You can't report it enough too many times.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This was to discuss the waterfront development strategy because, as everyone knows, Town Hard, we now have the boat park back, and the harbour, we work very closely with the Harbour Commission, with the jetties, but the whole of the area, there's been a long time, we've had long-term views, what we can do, what is possible. And what we'd like to do is to open a new strategy which will encompass the Town Council and the Harbour Commission as the core members, but then open that out to all stakeholders, everybody interested, whether it's the yacht club or it's commercial users, fishermen, and so on, to really open it up so that they can start their own committee and literally run their own sort of agendas, have their own secretary. The council may have 2 members on it, that needs to be agreed. The Harbour Commission might have 2 members on it, but we may well have another 8 independent members coming from all stakeholders throughout the town. And the idea is that they will meet whenever they want, they will run as a separate group, they'll have regular meetings, they will seek advice, seek opportunities, seek commercial maybe opportunities to look at, and they would then recommend to this council and to our commissioners their recommendations, to which we would not be bound to, but we would certainly like to receive their recommendation. So this recommendation to start with And obviously we want to involve the MMO as well with this, because that's important. To start with, all we're asking here is that we adopt the terms of reference, which starts the group off, for us to meet with the harbour commissioners firstly, to agree the final terms of reference, before we go out wider to all the stakeholders in the town, try and get a really interesting group to look at all facets that could be possible on the waterfront. This may take a long time, but this is a start, and we will then encompass everybody's viewpoints and try and find a consensus view for the future. So all we're doing at the moment is starting off in terms of reference for us to go forward to the Harbour Commissioners to see whether they'd be happy to join with us as core partners, and if we can then agree the final terms of reference, we will then open up a public meeting where we'll be looking for sort of 8 or 9 people to join a strategy group.
Is that a proposal you're looking for, just now?
That is a recommendation.
So you're looking for a proposal from the Commission? I'd be very happy to propose that. It would be nice to see something happen, just a little bit of, I have to say, that's a lot of people. Manageable, well, you don't know until it happens, so,
Well, the idea is this group will eventually run itself
yeah.
with 1 or 2 councillors.
Nothing wrong with this, and I applaud the initiative.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy to propose that.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that after you have the rest of the report? Or you carrying, sorry, you're carrying on with the whole thing?
Okay, fine.
So,
But there are a number of other recommendations. There's a recommendation to meet up with Mr. Parmenter down at the Tower Cafe. There is a question of that later, so perhaps we'll leave that to then. And also, we have now got all the information on the town survey, which I must say thank you to Councillor Court, who really did quite a lot of work in compiling this, and I think it's been quite useful. And the recommendation there is, because it's certainly got over 200 responses, that those responses and this report should be widely circulated to all interested groups within the town for their own information, tendering district council and so on. I think that's a good idea. And also to advertise it on the press and on our social media, so to get wide coverage so people understand what the people have said in the town centre.
Any questions? Yes.
Just on the waterfront development strategy
Yep.
document and circulate to all members, was that to all councillors or just members of the team?
That went to the team. That's a good point. Did that go to all the councils?
Everything for the teams goes to all councils.
It went to all councils.
Okay. Okay,
Oh, it's really circulated to you.
oh, it'll be in the emails then.
I've got a copy of each number.
Okay, are there any other questions? So we have, in here we have 3 recommendations, one that we've just discussed for the waterfront development, one for a copy of the letter to Mr. Field, sent to MMO. Recommendation that Councillor Atkinson continues his work on Lower Park Farm topographical survey and drainage. And finally, recommendations to circulate the ground, the survey. So, Johnny, you proposing this? Do I have a second there? Second, those in favour? I think that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So moving on to the next one, which is the environmental and transport. Before we start this, I would like to apologise to the council. I attended a meeting of which I thought I was a member, and it turns out I wasn't. I also proposed a member to be, and because I'm not a member, so at the next meeting, that whole election process will have to take on over again. But for the meeting that did happen, Councillor Penty was chaired it.
I might only have one chance at this, so.
I'll hand over to you.
Right. So I'm literally out on the limb here, got no help. I'd like to propose the notice of meeting held on the 10th of June at Parish Hall, and propose the recommendations and action points.
There you go.
Does anyone want to add anything to this?
I'll second it.
Can someone second me next time?
Yeah. There's, well, we've all got these, I could read each proposal, but, do I have a proposal? Gary proposes, sorry, do I have a second? Yeah, second it, all those in favour? Thank you. Do you have a report on residents' welfare?
We do.
Oh, yes, that one, sorry.
And the only thing I really want to add is the warning that has come out, the printed of, I think, really sent it to the comms team.
It's gone on to Facebook and then it was posted to Scott.
Okay, and also we are copying and putting into our emergency plan. Everybody thinks emergency plans are disasters, they're not, we have to cover the hot and cold weather as well, so we will be adding to that as we do last year.
Okay, fine, thank you. Kerry, sorry.
There was something about this on the news, and they said about maybe rewording things to do with the heat, because obviously they said and the weather. Everyone's assuming it's something bad, like you said. Maybe it should be reworded to make it a bit more obvious to the public that it is the heat, it's to do with the heat, instead of to do with the actual weather. Yeah, exactly. So you automatically assume it's a storm or something like that, but maybe we should be putting out notes, things to do in the heat as well. Changing the wording.
You just have to add to the wording and they did heat warning and then.
Yeah, like a heat warning instead.
It's going to.
Because weather warning just sounds like,
We have put a press release, out, but what we could do is put another press release out, if you have a look at it and suggest the wording.
just weather, heat warning. Heat warning's great. Yeah.
Okay, one thing that has occurred, which Jane has been quite silent about, but we should congratulate her for, is the report from the police and ambulance services of the work that Jane and others, I'm not sure who the others were, with a local individual, and they got an email back that said, Jane?
We basically had correspondence back from the ambulance service and the police service individually to say they've never done council work, as well as we did, and actually, I got to thank Julie,
Okay.
because Julie was doing my phone calls for us, and I was dealing with the emergency services, so,
Well, I think we'd like to minute that and have congratulations to the whole council on that.
yeah.
Well done, thank you very much. Now moving on to the final report, which is Tom's team. You've got the minutes of the meeting. It was a very short meeting because limited numbers, and we're having a second meeting next Tuesday. So I don't think there's anything else to say about that much, other than you've probably seen we're trialling a new press release form, means it goes out a lot quicker. And we're talking about doing a newsletter, a summary of all our press releases at the end of each month.
With the town survey.
Which sounds very definitely, definitely.
Chair, can I just do something on tourism?
Yeah.
The tourism, as you know, is under the TAC, Tourism Advisory Panel, which is devised by members from around the town and some councillors. The Tenbury show is coming up on the 12th of July 2025. Unfortunately, for the first time, I will not be able to make it because I need to go to a 60th birthday party up north somewhere, if I ever get there. Beyond the gap, so I'm looking for a councillor to sort of lead on it. I promise you a free batch to do. I'm hoping you'll be attending as well.
I'm looking forward to it, yes.
You can have a free batch.
I can have a free badge as well.
You can have a free
I'm not
badge.
sure if I can spend the whole day there though.
No, that's okay. It's just, I think it's a present. And if any council would like to put themselves forward, is to help Terry take the equipment up there on the van, and they just put it down there and help take the equipment down again and bring it back.
What was the date?
The 12th of July, it's a Saturday. We normally take the equipment and everything up there the day before. And the equipment comprises of gazebos, tables, and rooms.
So it's about 2 hours work on Friday. I normally do it. I don't ask for you for that tonight.
What does it involve?
Basically driving around town with Terry and truck, picking up a few bits and bobs, bigger stuff that people need to take down. So it goes in the back of the load loader, goes off, Terry brings it back, and then normally I drove it back on the Sundays. So you need to think about getting back to work, I won't be around on the Sunday.
Well, this 60th birthday party I'm going to is in Burton. It's not bad, is that? Will you do that? I won't. You may have a car.
Can I get the title at the front?
Yes. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And by the way, it's quite a good day. Really is quite nice. So, and we are the only council that exhibit. So,
Okay, any questions? Comments on tourism? No, thank you very much. Moving on then therefore to item 8 and A, to receive and approve the minutes of the finance meeting held on the 17th of June.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of points on the minutes. You might notice on the back of the minutes, we've now got the action points from the minutes, which we agreed we would start, which shows who's going to do what and by whom, which is quite a useful addition, I think. And also, the terms of reference was changed to include the FCA's recommendation that we take on the finance subcommittee will monitor all issues related to BTC's assets and community land. It was in the FCA, and that's now been moved to the finance subcommittee as it sort of deals with money and property and stuff like that. So that sort of makes sense. So there's a recommendation to do that. Other than that, recommendations regarding the lease of the works vehicle, which is being extended 1 more year to reduce cost, which is good for the council, and also go ahead with replacing the printer, the new printer, and again the reduced cost of the council.
In both cases, competitive price, competitive price was given and
Checked.
within pennies of each other.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Sorry, I think I've probably missed it, but just to say that the shelter on the front's obviously started the
Yeah.
works on it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, what's happening about the beach? Because I know the works, the prices were put in, the quotes were put in, I should know.
The one we own,
Yeah.
if we've got it up for sale, to see if we wanted to sell
Oh, is
it.
it? Oh,
But
sorry.
at the moment, we haven't actually got anything invited. It's up with the local state.
Oh, sorry, I don't know why I missed that, maybe I was aware.
Fine, any other questions? Okay, so,
Those,
proposed, do I have a second? David, I have a second. All those in favour?
Right.
Thank you, Eric. Moving on then to item B, which is the confirm the recommendations of the members examining the accounts. David.
Okay, good evening. Councillor Paisley and I have examined the accounts for April to May 2025 and under the delegated authority to the Finance Committee confirmed that 25 payments in the sum of £21,498.35 has been authorised and paid. Out of these 25 payments, one was paid in April for £5,361.30 and 3 paid late May, totaling £6,674.57. Statements of balances on the following accounts are accepted. April 25, current account, £30,363.35. Business premium account, £902.0. Business premium account, £28,646.82. CCLA Public Sector Deposit Fund, £51,170.56. Instant Access Account, £40,546.74. Current T2 account, £102,786.35. Make a total on all these accounts of £450.82p. Income for April 2025 was £161,304.04p. Expenditure for April 25, £44,096.86p. Employee payments paid for the month of April was £17,823.86p. And May 25, current account £32,845.9p. Business premium account £837. Business premium account £28,646.82p. CCLA Public Sector Deposit Fund £51,000, 358.22. Instant Access Account £42,748.64p. Current T2 account £85,484, 31p. Make a total on all accounts of £241,920, 8p. Income for May 25, £28,053, 17p. Expenditure for May, £40,548, 91p. Income to date, April to May, £189,357, 21p. Expenditure to date, 1st of April to 31st of May, £84,645, 77p. Employee payments paid for the month of May, £18,367, 36p. Sounds an awful lot of money, doesn't it?
Well done, David.
So Dave is proposing it, obviously I'm seconding it, so all those in favour? Yeah. All those against? Thank you very much.
How much is in the business premium account? Nothing.
You missed that, how much you spent.
0p.
You weren't listening, were you?
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, then planning. Councillor Howard has given her apologies, and I stand in as a deputy. I don't think there's anything to add to the minutes of those meetings, other than to say that I'm aware, and Councillor Chapman will confirm this, that just as a notice, the tendering allocation of houses, which was set less than 2 months ago, of 1,048 houses a year has increased.
To 1,062.
To 1,062, so just as a note, so the numbers keep on increasing. That's obviously spread across the whole of the tendering, and we still haven't had confirmation, or they still haven't decided which plan of which way they are distributing houses, how many pricing we'll get, so we're still waiting. Okay, thank you. Moving on then to item 10, policy update. Just to inform you that Tracy at the moment is going through the financial regs to update them to the latest current version, and hoping to include in that is our investment policy, which was one of the things the internal audit officer asked for. And we think we've got them in another piece of paper already. And Councillor Morgan and I are going through the risk register, and that should be completed and available for the next meeting. Thank you. So at the end of that, I think we've got through that, not too bad, just over an hour. So at this point, questions from the public. And just before I take questions from the public verbally, we have 2 questions from the public written in from Robbie Longhurst. There are 2 questions, and the first one I think will be taken by Councillor Stead.
Yeah, okay, so the question is, I met with Councillor Chapman said a year ago to raise issues of our responsibility of the state. All are still outstanding, so could we have an update on the problem? Rubbish bins emptying regularly a problem further down. Last week was particularly bad when our regularly only worker was on holiday. Missing bins still haven't been replaced, e.g. High Street, Promenade, Other Centre, and Borough Lido. Monthly street double cleaning, 3 cleans have happened in the past 12 months. Weekly payments week are not taking place. So I'd just like to make comments on those. So the rubbish bin emptying, the issue we had was we really operated was on holiday. The relief driver was not sure of all the bins locations. Terry did happen to grab hold of him one day and highlighted his bins. And he actually walked into some on the promenade area. And I myself took him to Lime Street. And so really it does appear to say that he's given a lack of information. And I think he did actually confirm that with me. The regular operator returned, highlighted listed bins, and this is a bit of an anomaly, so he said it would be dealt with the next day. So the idea is he wouldn't necessarily know what list bins occurred during his holiday period. And if he stood by the schedule, it would be another 5 days before that overflowing bill. But I requested that he emptied it straight away, which he did. So as I say, I'll just query whether he would not be aware of missed bins while he was off and could take it for days. Missing bins in the BTC budgets, but not actions. We did have in the budgets to have new bins cited for us. They were not actions due to financial restrictions. So we will be revisiting those and in sites where we think they are appropriate.
Sorry, BTC bins.
BTC. 10DC, I've done the new policy will be 1 bin for all. So instead of having a dog poo bin and then having a rubbish bin or waste bin, maybe 10 for all, that's never going to be the same bin. So we will be putting up with the TDC office on that to see if they're actually going to do that and when they're actually going to implement it. Monthly street sweeping and also pavement sweeping. Pavement weekly sweeping. I just really, well, how do we know? How do we know if the road hasn't been swept? Because some of the lower ones in the old town, sometimes it's very difficult for the bands to get down there because obviously the people are. So obviously that's something else we've got to look at. But as a council, what we have done, we do a robust reporting system, which is by Julie and also supported by all the other staff. And I think we should remember that initially on our town staff report, it used to be BTC issues. We then extended it to TDC issues, and now we're doing Essex County Council issues. So I think we have been able to react quicker to issues in the town, obviously on the ones which I've referenced today. So, action. As I keep saying, the contract is there for renewal. It is going out to tender. And obviously, I've had conversations with officers and also it's quite obvious that the contract has to be more robust than the existing one, and that was 14 years old. So the first thing I've highlighted is GPS equipment should be installed at all bands, because it's quite obvious when I was speaking to the relief guy, he was saying that very, very minimal information. He's got his own round in Clacton, and he gives people who are going to relieve him more information than what was passed over to him. Because he just had a basic map. You obviously don't know where the roads are, then it's just going to double your time. So, and then just talking about sweeping the roads, we've actually got a machine called Billy Road, which was accessed via Essex County Council. And I'm not saying that we should use that for every road, but I know that we have used it in certain respects in town centres in Victoria Place. I know we've used it to actually clean up. So once again, we'll be looking at where else we can utilise that. But it does come down to manpower as well. then the other issues, or probably the biggest issue, is going to be, and we keep saying it, is going to be the LGR, which is going to probably include evolved powers down from, instead of Essex County Council, Thames Municipal Council, the new unitary, it'll be interesting to see what evolved powers come down to Town Council, like ourselves. Of course, the big question is, it's all very well devolving powers, but are they going to devolve in finance? So that will be an interesting conversation.
Thank you. I have Councillor Chapman first.
I think Graham said a lot of it, the new contract is a far stricter contract. But I think the main thing is that, you know, in less than 3 years' time, we're not even going to be there. So how it's going to work, nobody knows. I think everybody's really scared of the situation. And this contract, or what was going on, I know has been spoken to who would probably be amalgamated with, which is Culture and Braintree, and they reckon they get, that's far more than they do. So I just hate to think what is coming ahead of us. We do know the road sweeper drove down New Street. Can't get anywhere near the edges, of course, to clean. And we just seem to be constantly banging our heads up at the moment.
Councillor Palmer.
Thanks, Graham, for following that up. I mean, it's always difficult to try and keep track of these ones, isn't it, really? But the fact on street cleaning, I'm not so sure about New Street, but in Tower Street, the street cleaner comes around at 6:30 in the morning, and all the cars are parked. So it'd be really good if he didn't come around until 10 o'clock or in the afternoon until the
I think sometimes the issue is if you've only got one sweeper,
Yeah.
two sweepers, where's it going to be?
Yeah.
But this has been mentioned 4 times.
Sorry?
It's been brought up 4 times.
Yeah, I think whilst I was checking on the gullies, I think something you brought up, I think the more important is the drains.
Well, I was going to come on to that if I can't. For the harbour,
Yeah.
you may or may not know that there's been a flood down the harbour for the last 2.5 years. We never been able to get our hands around. I was involved with French Marine to try and get the Affinity Water in to dig up the loan and everything like that. We monitored the meter, we did this, that, and the other. It was proved that it's coming from the fish and chip shop. He refused to allow the meter to do anything. But he's gone now, somebody else has come in, and the authorities issued a section something to the building, and suddenly the leak was fixed, and it was in the loft of the fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
But there's still a drain outside that's blocked.
Yeah.
2.5 years we've got to say.
I think hopefully item 9 on the ENC was like listed there like the waste bin scrap
Sure.
and table. We should review where all the bins are. I know Matt's going to work on it tomorrow, just to see if we can redo the 3 locations, 3 words.
What three words?
What 3 words? So I know we're on there. So the idea is we will do that, and then we will come up with like a basic bin strategy.
And I just have one other, if I may, on our Billy Goat thing is, yeah, we use that in the high street. It would be really good to bring it down on the harbour, especially in the summertime. I mean, that is like, it's awful, isn't it? But the amount of litter there, really is just.
Yeah.
Kate first, and then
Just,
Kerry and
so as it stands at the moment, Graham, can you tell me what the road sweeping schedule is and what the bin collecting schedule is? Is it weekly? Is it?
so you prepared earlier.
It's what I said earlier.
Monthly, it's got the day. To be honest with you, I believe it's easier for. And also we've got a site of all our bins and tendering bins on the town. So again, we'll have to do revisiting that.
If someone were to say to me, how often is my road supposed to be swept? Is it every 7 days or is it every month or is it?
8 weekly on a lot of it.
8 weeks.
So you know that, that's got to be on there. Yeah.
The information is on the council's website.
Is it?
Yes.
Schedule is on there.
Uh,
That's just copy.
Kerry, you want to say something?
You was talking about the drains. Just saying, there's a beautiful botanic garden growing in the one in Wellington Street. It's actually very pretty. But it is going to get to the point where, yeah, have you seen it? You've got to go and have a look. It's amazing. Proper little plants growing out of it.
Not
I don't
leaving
know how long
that
it's
to
been there for, but
Not hotel hiding place.
no.
Yeah, my thing is about what you were saying about reporting, about how Julie and Tracy and everyone else, they do a really good job of reporting. It's not the reporting, it's the reporting, it's the lack of action. From Tenrin, from Essex, from Veolia, which is a £2 billion a year company, and they can't even get something as simple as this right. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I really do hope that the new waste contract is going to have penalties that can actually be enforced, because I think when I asked about this last year, we said that we couldn't actually put any penalties in because they can only impose a penalty when the bin hasn't been emptied for over a month.
28, yeah,
It's ridiculous.
28 days after.
I mean, we all must know that is ridiculous. So I really do hope that the contract is.
Okay, I'm going to close this down if I may, because this is a second question to deal with.
Oh, God.
Yes,
From the same person, I think. So, second question is, we were advised that work would commence on the basement building in spring. Why has it not? And does BTC hold a copy of the risk assessment for the building? Well, I'd like just to tell you that we have been constantly in conversation with the owner, and we have written to them saying that we want a meeting. And actually, Councillor Atkinson, Terry, our works manager, and myself met the project manager only yesterday morning, a chap called Ben Parmenter, who's a very qualified person, and he gave good assurances that the project will go forward. They will need to put revised planning permission in. The structure will go to a fixed structure. There's no doubt about it. There will not be a floating structure again. David was helping them with about the drains and where the drains are. He needs to know that. He didn't seem to have quite the right papers which David was helping him with. And we left with an assurance that this project will be completed. And I think you're looking at a timescale late this year and next. And that Ben Parmenter will now give us a monthly report to the FCA, updates where they are and where they're going. So I don't know whether David would like to add anything to that.
No, just to say that there's Ben Parmenter is the project manager. He's recruited a new professional team, which is an architect, structural engineer, and services engineer. Ben Parmenter is very well qualified, quite relevant. One of his skills is lifting very heavy weights. He lifts bridges up in the air. So as the whole cap is going to be lifted half a metre, that's quite an important skill to have. So you lift it half a metre, then concrete pump underneath it. Once that's achieved, then it becomes just a normal building. At the moment, it's a very, or has been a very specialist building, so it becomes just a normal building that people understand. The only other thing I would add is that we've asked them for the revised risk assessment and an updated insurance policies to make sure that all's well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. As you know, this has been going on for a number of years now. It's becoming increasingly frustrating. I applaud the fact that Dave's Ben Parmenter has now created a team to lead on it. I think that was the thing that might not really happen before, wasn't it?
Yeah, now they're in place.
Yeah. So, and as far as the drainage is concerned, Councillor Stepney and I have twice given them the maps 6 months ago, I think, wasn't it? So, sorry, that's not an excuse. Can we please get this back?
Well, I think everyone in the town, the interesting thing about the town survey was that
Was that?
that was one of the biggest
Time and
things.
time again. It's an embarrassment.
So can I just ask, did you get a sense that there was, as well as a team involved, that there was the resources required to finish the job? Because I have to say we have had assurances over the last 5 years on this, six years, yeah. And each time they've not been fulfilled, and we've gone back and said, oh, we've got to do something about this. I would like to think that there is not just, it seems to be one-way traffic. We ask for a report, we get it. I think we really need to put a qualified response on the, if there is a lack of an outcome by a certain time, you know, where's the time scale, where's the money, have you got resources, I'm sure your bank account, but can you ensure that this is guaranteed? And certainly by, he's saying by the end of this year, early next year, the work should be finished. I think we have to put a deadline and say if it's not finished or whatever, if there's an exceptional, a surge or a whatever, can we then put in an agreement with the owner that there will be a response from this council that will either stop this happening again, and we'll find an alternative. Because I'm sick to death, as are most people, of hearing the same thing year after year after year. And now, this is to me sounds the most promising potential working party that we've had before. And I mean, dear members, you could say, is it possible to put a time scale on and hold somebody to it?
We've had a draft programme, very detailed, and just amending that slightly. And we'll be assured in the next few days, we'll get a revised programme with some absolute key dates highlighted. Planning, environment agency, all sorts of things. So we absolutely, almost to the day, we can highlight those key dates. So then we have towards our response, but rather than wait to another year and find it's not built, we can now say what happens if it's not built, if you haven't got planning in September and August.
Yeah.
So now these are a measure of performance. And the first measure will.
Clearly planning is going to be an issue.
2 months' time. So I mean, if that doesn't happen, then alarm bells will ring back, not in the spring, or something.
We were seeking that.
Okay, okay. Therefore, I'll now open up to the public further questions. Now, can you stand if you wouldn't mind giving us your name?
Yeah, my name's Richard Price. It's about the parking partnership. End of the financial year in April, did they have a deficit or were they in surplus? I asked the question because the year before, and Councillor Barry knows this, there was a deficit, but nobody could tell us what the deficit was for that year.
Yeah, well, I was actually at a meeting this afternoon with the Parking Partnership, and the good news was that they are in surplus. I think £74,000 surplus with a projected 160,000 surplus next year. So that means that you know our council, tendering council, will not have to make any contribution to plug the deficit. There were some traffic regulation orders put through covering some areas in Clacton that had been outstanding for 2 years. They were put through by the chairman today, and we put forward, myself and a councillor Hargreaves from Uttlesford, put forward a proposal that the contract as it stands is revised, despite opposition from councillors in Braintree and Harlow, for reasons I still can't understand. We got that through, and that's now gone off to Essex County Council. So whatever happens with local government restructuring, the contract should be able to be used to apportion any debts or surpluses to the relevant authorities. And we're still, still resisting the imposition of any charges on our seafronts. I mean, tendering is quite unique, I think, in the country in having no charges for parking along its seafronts anywhere. And I suspect that the new unitary council, maybe located in Colchester as a centre, will see that as a cash cow that they cannot ignore. And we have got a level of resistance, but it depends, you know, on how we get our representation to that body. And I know it was a very positive meeting today. I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions? Yes.
Ravina Longhurst here. Allotments, is there a waiting list for the allotment? Because I've got my neighbour's allotment and one just across the road, and the weeds are shoulder height, and it's quite fair, isn't it? Yeah, no, so there's a few that aren't being cultivated.
There is a waiting list, yes. Do you want to, have you got those details? Unfortunately, Julie does. If you'd like to leave your name and contact details, we'll tell you where you are. If your name's on the waiting list.
No, I've got one. It's
Oh, you've got
causing
one?
an issue.
Oh, there,
Yeah,
yeah.
because, you know, all the weeds are.
The neighbours are causing an issue.
So there's 15,
There's
Jennifer just said there's 15.
cultivated allotments.
And I believe there's about 9 plots to be given out at the moment. And if you'd like to let me have your allotment number at the end of the meeting, and I'll ask Julie to work out the neighbours to have a look. And Terry can do another inspection. Brilliant.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Can I just refer to the Environment and Transport Team document, page 1, last paragraph? Can you clarify why it might help rubbish issues by removing the bins by the toilets on Western Promenade?
Yeah.
It was the one by the Western Prom toilet blocks. It was one which we did put into, an extra one we did put in situ. And it was notoriously overflowing. And we did put a sign on there, say if this bin is full, then please go to another one. But that still didn't do the trick. And what we're finding is that you've got the blue bins going back and forth. So that bin was overflowing, and the other bins were half full, overfull. So again, part of our strategy will be to encourage people to go to other bins which have got capacity, or even better still, take the rubbish home. I'll give you an example. We had an issue up Hurst Green. There's 3 bins up on Hurst Green, and one of them was the nearest one to the Rosebud, was full, and people left full poo bags on the floor around it. When we went round to the other 2, they both had capacity, more than capacity. So that would be one of our strains. How do we educate people to actually use it? And don't get me wrong, you know, we're dog users, so we know users. I don't use it, I don't use dog users. Dog being users. Dog being users. Yeah,
Tell you the truth, I've seen you behind the tree.
Right, can I just confirm, is it a town council one?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. But to be honest with you, you won first prize because you're the only one who actually said that. Where's it gone?
Where's it legal?
Well, if you take away all the bins, there'd be no overflowed bins, would
Yeah,
there?
that's a really good idea. Yes.
Dave Stone, I was going to do a cheeky Milton and ask 2 questions, but you've already done the paper. The lack of parking restrictions outside the bakers. Has anything been done about that at all?
It was, and I don't think it was possible for them to do.
Yeah, we did look into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did have somebody down from the North Essex Parking Partnership, and that was probably a few, 2-3 months ago when this question was first raised, and we went along there and showed him the spot, and he got up on his map of areas that are restricted and so on, and it's not a restricted area, although there are areas nearby that is not a designated restricted
Can it
area.
become one?
It
I mean, there's
could,
a highways traffic truck parks in there all weekend,
yeah.
most nights. That's not filming butchers.
No, I mean, it
and
could,
shoppers.
with, I mean, it would take,
unfortunately, it's quite a lengthy process to get any sort of lines or restricted weighting through, but I don't know, it would have to be a proposal from probably one of, is it the bakers? Always complaining about it.
They all are, but especially the bakers, yes.
I mean, I think we did ask, and why wasn't it included? And I don't know, I can't remember what the answer was now, but I can go back and ask that question for you to find out what the potential is to have it done.
So do the shopkeepers need to write to the council then? to
Well, I
get-
think they did, that's why we went round. We went at the request of the lady from the bakery, and she said, why isn't it being enforced? And when we got there, we said, actually, it's not an area that can be enforced. So you have to go right back to the drawing board and go through probably a 1 or 2 year process to, because you then have to consult the other shops in that area. I'm sure everybody would support it, and then process it through the net system, which is going to disappear in 2 years' time. So it's probably a bit too late to get it to find out. But, I can just ask the question and confirm what the position would be on getting that reclassified as a restricted waiting area. But if there is a particular problem, we could actually ask somebody to have a word with whoever.
Highways, truck is there.
Yeah.
He lives opposite me.
Sorry?
He lives opposite me.
I'm in Bartex.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, is there any more public questions? Yeah, Malcolm, Malcolm, and then the gentleman in front. Malcolm, come.
Mick B. You said in your introduction, attended Sigma Trust, the school, were they going to close for the summer holidays? They include the AstroTurf.
Yeah. So the walkers as well, Malcolm.
I know. We're hard done.
No,
by.
I'm not having it.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so I just want to get on to Malcolm W.
No, everybody's aware of it.
Yeah.
The gentleman in front.
Yes, indeed. Just a very quick question. Last year, under John Carr, we commemorated Merchant Navy Day in September. Are we going to do the same again?
John.
It is my plan to create another Merchant Navy Day. A few of the old Red Ensign chaps in the town have indicated it was a damn fine thing. Not enough beer, but never mind. So, yes.
Okay.
What's the date, please?
21st September.
21st, okay, thank you.
As a merchantman, you won't know that.
I'll get my red ends on it.
Okay, are there any other public questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your question. Thank you again for coming. Always glad to see you public. You got one more item, yes, I don't worry, I forgot you. So, report from the town clerk.
Very quickly, just one item, that the pram race is being held on Saturday, 16th of August. I'd like to start the race on Hurst Green with motorbikes on the green with leading race.
Shall I leave?
You can declare it.
Sorry, just kind of came up with it. Oh, just declaring
Yeah,
interest
yeah.
then.
So, we're happy with that, yes?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Very happy with that.
Yes, we're happy with that.
And I'll need copies of the insurance and risk assessment in advance.
Lovely.
Okay, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for bearing with us. And I close this meeting at 8.